So we know Japanese sounds like a, I, U, E, O. But how does it look? This is a regular article you might find in Japanese. But in it, there are some characters that we recognize. That obviously says DVD. And there are some really complex looking characters. Something that looks a little more simple. And then something that looks very rigid and straight. These are all 4 different types of Japanese characters. And we're going to use all of them in order to read regular Japanese. So let's start with the one that looks the most familiar. This is Romaji. Roma. Roma stands for Rome. They're Roman characters, which is why they look so familiar to us as English speakers. This is usually used as an okay guide for English speakers. You can kind of sound out what the word is supposed to sound like, even if you can't read Japanese yet. However, do not get used to using this for everything, because when you go to Japan, not everything is going to be written this way. The one place where you will use this all the time is when you're typing, because then this way you can use your English keyboard and just type A for A, R-I-D, G-A, ga, T-O-U, and then you can type out arigato, the Japanese word for thank you, using your English keyboard. Another place where you'll see it is signs, because we don't want foreigners to get lost. We want you to know where you are, even if you can't read all Japanese yet. So another heavily used writing system in Japan is Kanji. You might look at it and think, hey, that looks a lot like Chinese. And yeah, they originally came from China. These are symbolic. Each symbol, each character stands for a meaning. And a lot of them came from pictures. Think like hieroglyphics in Egypt. So they looked at the moon, they kind of started drawing the moon, then they got tired of drawing the moon every time they wanted to just write about it, and so it became this symbol. This character always means something to do with the moon. Same thing here. You have a picture of fire. You want to write about fire, write the word fire. Well, it became this symbol, this character. Because you then have to have a character for every single concept, the moon, fire, stars, all of it, there are a little over 2,100 quote-quote regular use kanji. And so if you were reading just a newspaper article, you would have to know about 2,100 kanji to be able to read it with ease. And because you have to have a different symbol for every single concept, these tend to look a little more complex. So if you want to guess what symbol this kanji might stand for, it does come from a picture. That's supposed to be a dragon. Notice how it's pretty complex, lots of lines going through. It doesn't mean all of them have to be so many strokes. This one's a very simple kanji, and this comes from this picture. It stands for the sun. Anything to do with the sun, you would write with this character. Now, there are about 2,100 kanji now, but way back when they first came from, when this writing system came from China, they had about 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 characters. Imagine how long you would have to study in school to learn the alphabet if it was 7,000 characters. Crazy. Now, Japanese people, they got lazy halfway through. They were like, oh my god, that's so much school, that's so much studying. I want an easier way to write. And so, at some point, people started to just take parts of the kanji and just save part of it and say, oh, well, that represents the whole character now. There was another group that took the kanji and started kind of writing in cursive. They were like, I don't want to write out all the strokes, and so I'm just going to mush them together like cursive. And these were the 2 new sets of writing that were developed in Japanese. So, one of them is Hiragana. This is the curvy one, looks like cursive, like you kind of mush together some of the lines, some of the strokes. This was actually popularized by women, because way back when, women were excluded from going to school. And women wanted to read and write just like the men who got to go to school. And so they said, well, I can't learn 7,000 characters on my own, so I'm just going to create a really simple system that anyone can use. And so they essentially created their own alphabet. Hiragana is phonetic. Each character represents a sound, and because you can now spell out different words, all you need in Japanese are 46 basic characters. And that's it. A lot better compared to 5, 6, 7,000. So again, hiragana kind of acts like the alphabet. It's only sounds, no meaning. The letter a just represents the sound a. Just like the letter C doesn't have any meaning, it just represents the sound that it makes. The nice thing about hiragana in Japanese is a, the letter a, is always going to just sound like a. Whereas in English, the letter C could sound like at, it could sound like catch, and it could sound like slice. English is a confusing language. In that sense, hiragana is very straightforward. A is always going to sound like a. Now there's that other system, katakana. Katakana, overall, compared to hiragana, which is curvy, katakana looks very rigid and straight lines. Kind of think of it as like the robotic language. This was developed because when people were, writing 5,000, 6,700 kanji, 7,000 kanji, they were like, oh my god, each character takes so many strokes to write. I want a quick way to write. Just very few lines, very few straight lines so that I can just quickly write down a note and give it to somebody else. And so that's how katakana was born. Katakana is also phonetic, just like the alphabet, just like hiragana. Each letter represents a sound. And because of that, again, only 46 basic characters. So there's a hiragana way to write a, there's a katakana way to write a. Which then brings us to the question, then why don't they just use hiragana? Why in the world do we have two separate alphabets? And so the reason why katakana stuck around is because now we use it for very specific situations. For instance, foreign origin words, words that came from another language, are always written in katakana in Japan. So this yellow box says bata on it. Bata means butter. Japan didn't have butter before it was imported, and so when they realized the foreigners were calling this new thing butter, they decided to write it, bata, and now they write it in katakana because it's foreign. Foreign names will also be written in katakana. Another time you'll see katakana is for onomatopoeia, words that represent sounds. So in manga, you'll see a lot of zo, beep, ba 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 ba, bang. Those kinds of sounds are always written in katakana. Also, it's used for emphasis because hiragana is used way more often and katakana you only see sometimes. Your eyes are drawn to it, like italics or bold in English. And so sometimes a word will be written in katakana just to draw your attention to it. And so there you have it. This article has all 4 different types. We can't read this yet, but can you at least try to guess which kind of writing each of these characters is from? Is it Romaji, Kanji, Hiragana, or Katakana? So this first box just says na, very rigid, very straight. If you guessed, yes, it is about Anna, Elsa, and Frozen. So Anna is a foreign name. This is katakana, katakana. It looks very rigid, it's phonetic, and it represents a foreign, in this case, name. The next one, we know how to read this DVD. That's because it's in using the alphabet, Roman characters. Yeah, it's Romaji. The third one, very curvy, relatively simple. Yeah, that's Hiragana. And the last one, there's lots of strokes going on, looks a little bit more complex. Yeah, these are symbols that represent meaning. There's lots of different ones. This is kanji. So compared to English, which is just one alphabet, yes, this is a little intimidating, but we'll start with the easiest one. We'll start with hiragana in Japanese one. Just 46 characters.